How's it going, laser bruisers? I'm Bobby Sixkilla and welcome back to Route Double. We're heading off to Labo now because we have decided that it is the obvious place that the terrorists are going to be hitting next. Which, I mean, it does seem obvious, so we're going to head over there and try and warn them. We kind of already know how that plays out, but it'd be interesting to see how it gets there, how it gets that bad, and how they get stuck so deep in there. Like when we come across them, they're already in Area N, which is, you know, as far in as you can possibly get. Only one road led to Labo. Labo Private Highway. The entrance had an inspection gate where all cars were checked. The facility was equipped with a nuclear reactor. Their level of security was only to be expected. And at the entrance, Natsuhiko, Mashido and Sally were caught in the checkpoint as well. Who are you kids? They were stopped by a stern-faced traffic inspector. We want to go to Labo. Please let us through. What the hell do you think you're saying? No, definitely not. How do you even expect to get there? It's 10 kilometers away, you know? Stop spewing bullshit and go home, kids. But we know Dr. Tenkawa. I don't care who you know. Nobody gets through this inspection gate without a valid reason. If you want to get to Labo, then go through the proper routes to get permission from the Rokume City Security Department or Labo's PR manager. Permission? How long does it take to get that? Anywhere from 3 days to 1 week, I suppose. Though I seriously doubt they'd take an ordinary student's application seriously. No way. It could be a terrorist attack on Labo, you know. A terrorist attack? Well, yeah. There's been a big commotion lately around town. We're already on guard. A little too on guard if you ask me, though. No, it's not enough. There's a high probability that the terrorists could have a sleeper agent in Labo. Have you considered that possibility? Sleeper agent? What nonsense is that? Whatever, just go home already before I call the cops on you. And with that threat, the traffic inspector placed his hand on the phone. The police. They just cleared their names with the security department. If he called the police, things could quite possibly get troublesome again. Possibly worse. Sally gently whispered into Natsuhiko's ear. Let's go home, you two. It's not a good idea to agitate the situation any further. But... What we need to do is stop the terrorist plot, not make enemies of the police and security department. Natsuhiko and Mashido were finally convinced. Okay, let's think of a new plan then. It'd be for the best. Excuse us. Better not see you around here ever again, even if you get lost, you hear? The kids left the inspection point with that voice at their backs. This looks bad. What do we do? Doesn't look like we got a choice. Let's look for a payphone. For now. Let's give a heads up to the police and the security department and finally Labo. They nodded and began walking again. As they walked about the main road, they soon found 2 payphones lined up next to each other. Natsuhiko quickly looked up the security department number and called them. Yes, this is the Rokume Municipal Office Security Department. Takahashi speaking. Thanks for all the hard work. It's me, Tenkawa, the Rokume Academy student. Oh, well, if it isn't Mr. Housekeeper, what can I do for you? Well, you see, Natsuhiko gave the security department member a summary of Sully's conjecture. However, so basically there's a possibility that the terrorists are targeting Labo. Yeah, we already know that. Thanks for your cooperation. The voice on the other side of the phone had not a hint of seriousness. We'll give Labo a heads up, so just relax. No, that still doesn't seem like enough. Can't you increase security or anything? Well, we have to dilute security at every other facility, and we can't exactly do that. I know that, but isn't there anything you can do? I feel like diluting the security in other places is probably worth it for a nuclear reactor. We can't work on possibilities alone. It'd be a different story if Labo at least received objectionable literature or something. We should send our own objectionable literature. I like how they always use the words objectionable literature. That's such a strange thing to say. Anyway, we'll strengthen security around the city. Understood. Please do. Natsuhiko drooped his shoulders and hung up. Soldiers. How did it go? Well, at least you heard me out, but you know, how'd it go on your end? While Natsuhiko was calling the security department, Mashido was contacting the police. But she just looked dejected and shook her head. No good at all. They kept insisting that security was sufficient. Our story too much of a stretch for them to believe us. What should we do? Right when Sally muttered that, they heard footsteps approaching in the distance. Natsuhiko gasped and looked back. There was a single man walking on the other side of the street. He was covering his face with a jacket hood and sunglasses, even though it was nighttime. Mashido, Sally, that man. Mashido and Sally looked at the man after Natsuhiko whispered to them. The man was tall, and they could tell he was quite muscular, even through his jacket. There was a strange intensity about him as well. Is that the man who was on the bus? Maybe, at least he looks like he has the same build. He's coming this way. The man walked straight toward them, never looking to either side. What if he's a terrorist? The fact that he was approaching without hiding or running away probably meant that he had business with them. The fact that he wasn't on guard meant he could be armed. Don't tell me he's here to silence us. Natsuhiko promptly put himself on guard. If the man wasn't a terrorist, he just walked past them. The man stopped about 50 meters away from the kids, but then he suddenly made a mad dash at them. Mashido, Sully, let's get out of here. Yeah. Natsuhiko turned back and tried to run, but on the other side of the road was just a single straight path continuing on forever. There was not a distance he could run while taking Mashido with him. This way, turn to the side road. In a daze, Natsuhiko dragged Mashido and Sully into the side road. They ran down the unpaved road. They could tell the man was following them. They made a desperate run for their life in the darkness with nary a streetlight. Soon enough, Natsuhiko realized something. The street was familiar. This path leads to... That's right, it should lead to the ruined factory. He didn't know if taking refuge in those ruins would be a blessing or a curse. It means no one's going to be around to watch him murder us. But he knew that if they kept running, their chances of escaping were low. This way, guys. Natsuhiko shouted and rushed into the ruined factory. They tried to catch their breath as quietly as they could, and with stealthy steps they hid under cover. As they held their breath, they heard Mashido using telepathy. You think we'll be okay if we hide here? Natsuhiko and Sully answered her in a whisper. I don't know. Hopefully he overlooks this ruined factory and passes it by. You can't be optimistic. If he does come here, I'll stall him with a surprise attack. Mashido quietly gasped at those words. A surprise attack? You're going to attack that huge man? There should be no problem as long as he doesn't have any hand-to-hand combat skills. Even if he's trained in hand-to-hand combat or he's armed, I'll be able to manage if I take him by surprise. Will he really be okay? I will, as long as he's alone, that is. And what if he's not alone? As soon as that thought crossed Natsuhiko's mind, he heard footsteps outside the factory. Natsuhiko shrunk down and held his breath. The footsteps slowly came into the factory. The number of footsteps revealed that he was alone. He seems to be alone. Can you manage? Sully silently nodded. Should we help? Sully silently shook her head. You can do it by yourself? Sully nodded and smiled as if to tell Mashido to relax. The footsteps drew closer. So close they could almost feel the man's breath. Sully slowly calculated her timing and jumped out of her cover. Sully's shadow danced in the darkness. They could hear the man gasp. Shit! Sully moved faster than the man could ready himself and landed a roundhouse kick solidly on his head. The man silently fell to the floor. You did it! Amazing! Way to go, Sully! Sully looked away as if embarrassed by Natsuhiko and Mashido's praise. More importantly, who was this man? Judging by the circumstances, he seems like a terrorist, but should we wait until he wakes up and ask him? No, that seems too dangerous. Mashido, can you read his mind with empathy? I don't know, I've never tried reading the mind of an unconscious person before. You'd get some fucked up dreams coming through, wouldn't you? But I'll try it out. Yeah, I'll try too. Natsuhiko and Mashido put their fingers to their brows. They concentrated their consciousnesses on the fainted man and focused deeply on the desire to read his mind. Tell me, who are you? Are you really a terrorist? He focused on that question with all his heart, all his mind. He deepened his concentration and eventually his 5 senses faded. Yes, that's the sensation. I've activated empathy. The moment he made that realization, he lost senses. His lost senses were replaced with the sound of a bizarre voice. But the voice was nothing but unintelligible vestiges of thought. And he heard fragments of noise. No matter how carefully he searched, the result was the same. Damn, I can't figure out anything like this. I guess it really doesn't work, huh? Can't exactly open your heart if you're conked out. Natsuhiko stopped concentrating and spoke to Mashido. Mashido, how's it going on? Natsuhiko gasped before he could finish. Mashido was standing stock still with her eyes peeled wide open. Natsuhiko? He gasped and traced Mashido's gaze. Oh no, they have guns! And to see 2 unfamiliar men suddenly standing there in the darkness. What? Only then did Natsuhiko notice. that Sully was collapsed at the men's feet, and that the man on the left was holding a gun. There's no room for doubt. In no uncertain terms, these men were terrorists. Damn it, so he really did have allies. Natsuhiko cursed his carelessness. Once Natsuhiko tried to use BC, his 5 senses died out. In other words, he became oblivious to what was going on around him. Did these you guys come in from the back and knock Salyu out? It seemed she was only unconscious, judging by the lack of blood. And now that Salyu, the only one among them with combat skills, was incapacitated, they had no means of a counter-offensive. Salyu? Mashiro muttered Salyu's name in a trembling voice and tried to walk up to her. Don't move. But that voice stopped her. The second you move, I shoot. Natsuhiko stood to cover for Mashiro, upon which the third man spoke. Natsuhiko Tenkawa and Mashiro Toba, I presume. How do you know our names? We have someone looking into it. We heard that a couple of kids... We had a couple of kids trying to sniff out our plans, see? A cold chill ran down Natsuhiko's spine. He'd never expected to be apprehended by the enemy so easily. Are these guys an even huger organization than we thought? The man continued as Natsuhiko found himself at a loss for words. Self-righteousness just leads to self-destruction. Sorry, but we have to dispose of him. You gonna kill us? The other man answered the question quite briefly. Yeah, we will. Wait, it'll be too conspicuous if we leave bodies behind. But even so, we can't leave any insecurities in our plan before it hatches, can we? Of course not, so in that case, let's just put your kids to sleep for now. Not 1 second after the man finished talking, he ran over to Mashiro and swiftly hit her in the neck with a knife hand strike. Mashiro gasped before collapsing on the spot. What are you doing? I said I'm putting your kids to sleep, didn't I? How dare you? How dare you lay a hand on Mashiro? Natsuhiko gave in to his anger and tried to strike the man, but the man dodged all too easily and wrapped around behind him. In the very next moment, the man wrapped his thick arm around Natsuhiko's neck. Natsuhiko's breathing stopped. The man wrung out every last bit of air from his lungs. Damn it! Let go! But all the strength in Natsuhiko's body was not enough to make the man budge one bit. The grip in the man's arm was enough to show Natsuhiko the hopeless difference in strength between them. His consciousness started to fade in the distance. Damn it! Is this where it ends? There was nothing more that Natsuhiko could do. As soon as he understood the extent of his own powerlessness, fury burst up from inside of him. At the very least, let me at least know what exactly these guys are plotting. He screamed from the depths of his mind not to let things end this way. A torrent of rage surged from inside Natsuhiko. Let me use empathy or anything at all. Show me what's inside their minds. What you need at the moment is telekinesis to pick up something around here, like one of those big sticks or something, and smack him with it with your mind. As that thought crossed his mind, Natsuhiko's vision blacked out. And a bizarre vision arose from the back of his mind. He saw an unfamiliar room. He heard someone's voice from right beside him. Silence the man. And then he heard someone else answer, "Not like we've got a choice. You're telling us to kill children? Don't go that far, just threaten them and tie them up. The security department's mobilizing too. We don't want to draw attention. We can't have Labo increasing their own levels of security either. Because D-Day is tomorrow." Right as Natsuhiko heard up to that point, the voices quickly faded away. And the vision disappeared too. What? Natsuhiko gasped. What just happened? He had a feeling it was a little different from empathy. But one thing was for certain. So the real target was Labo after all. And D-Day is tomorrow? Stop. But Natsuhiko's consciousness faded away before he could tell anyone anything. His sight sank into darkness and his hearing fell silent too. And yet for some reason, he heard the painfully loud ticking of a watch's second hand. And mixed in with that sound, he heard a faint voice. Rin. It was Yuri's voice. Yuri? She sounded somehow sad. Hikida, you finally reached it, haven't you? Huh? The apex of a communicator's journey. The ability beyond empathy. The power to connect minds rather than just brains. But it would be best if you didn't use it anymore. But you might end up knowing something you'd rather not know. No way, like hell there's something I'd rather not know. Natsuhiko shouted voicelessly. I learned what their goal was. Our conjecture was right. So we have to do something. By the time he made that realization, it was too late. Natsuhiko's consciousness was blanking out. A short silence passed, and then Yuri seemed just a little bit happy. I see. Of course you'd think that way, Hikiden. In that case, you mustn't give up. But the truth is already right before you. I'm sure you can reach it, Hikiden. The voice faded into the distance. Eventually, even the sound of the watch's second hand faded out and ceased. We're going back to the future. Natsuhiko had a detailed recollection of what happened yesterday. He remembered the day he'd learned the truth, confronted the enemy and suffered defeat. And today, the gate closed in front of them, sending Natsuhiko into a crisis alongside Yuri and Mashiro. But even so, like hell am I going to give up? He had that conviction. Yuri stood beside him and whispered softly into his ear. Hikiden, you've remembered, haven't you? You've overcome several obstacles to get here. You've obtained the strength you need to overcome the past. No matter what happens from now on, your mind will endure. You should be able to overcome anything. Those words fortified Natsuhiko's mind even further. Though his head still hurt, he gritted his teeth and bore it. Mashiro called out to Natsuhiko in the silence. Natsuhiko, what are you talking to Yuri about? Natsuhiko smiled and answered her. She's given me courage. Huh? Mashiro, we can't give up yet. There has to be a way out. But we can't go anywhere because the gate won't open. No, we'll search for a security card. As long as you have the right card, we can go to Area 6. Closer inspection of the gate revealed a card slot. Natsuhiko, Mashiro and Yuri didn't have a security card, but if they found one, they could probably open the gate. There was a huge panic in the facility after the alarm rang out. It wouldn't be surprising if one of the staff members forgot to bring their card with them. I see. A little bit of Mashiro's cheerfulness had returned to her voice. It may have just been a sliver of hope, but they had no choice but to wager on it. I swear I'll find a card and get these two girls out of here if it's the last thing I do. Natsuhiko made that conviction and ran off once more. Let's split up the search. Mashiro, you take that room. Okay. Then Hikiden, you take the room further down. Yeah, leave it to me. Natsuhiko followed Yuri's suggestion and plunged into that room. It was a small personal office, about 9 square meters in size. It's a mess, huh? Maybe I can find a card here somewhere. Natsuhiko quickly started searching for a card. First he tried searching through the desk drawers, but all he found were metal boxes of some sort. Nothing like a card. He quickly gave up on the drawers and started looking on top of the desk. But then something entirely different on the desk caught his eye. About AD, is it? Huh? A digital photo frame decorated the desk, and the photo currently displayed was a photo of Natsuhiko himself. Why is there a picture of me here? As he looked at the picture, he remembered when the photo was taken. The day he entered high school was one of the rare days his mother came home. She took the photo with her PDA camera that evening. Don't tell me this is Mum's personal office. Natsuhiko gasped, but as he looked at that picture, he was struck by the tremendous sense that there was something out of place. Natsuhiko was sitting on the sofa alone. He remembered being confused when his mother abruptly pointed her PDA at him. But something's not right here. And the uncanny feeling became too much for Natsuhiko, and he averted his eyes from the photo, only for his gaze to land on a file rack nearby. The files appeared to be organised by year, and the file labelled 2021 in particular. This wasn't the time to be snooping. But Natsuhiko reached out for the file as if entranced. The answer just might be in here. As soon as that thought crossed his mind, he felt someone's presence. He looked up in shock to find Yuri standing by the room's entrance. Yuri? Yuri silently tilted her head to one side. Natsuhiko interrogated her. Did you send me into this room because you knew about this? Did I send you? No, Hikiden. You chose this room yourself. What do you mean? We came into this room 9 years ago too, didn't we? To escape the fire and the smoke. You couldn't find a card back then, but this time, you can find one for sure. How do you know that? You just overlooked it. You should already know where the card is, Hikiden. Yuri looked at Natsuhiko as she spoke. Look for it, and escape with Mashiro. With Mashiro? What about you, Yuri? I can't go with you. Why not? Haven't you realized it already? Yuri smiled a lonely smile. What does she mean? I already know the reason? But gradually, Natsuhiko began to notice. The sights he saw, the sounds he heard, and the feelings he felt, all the memories he was recollecting, were approaching the present. The recollections and the present were about to overlap temporarily. Natsuhiko's watch began to move again, as if to press him to move as well. The date displayed said 9/16, The hands pointed to 319, today. Hikarin, try to remember what it was you saw and heard today, for the truth lies in those observations. And with Yuri's whisper, Natsuhiko's consciousness went back 4 hours in time. We're getting there. We're nearly there. The overlap is when it's all going to be revealed, right? In the starless darkness, Natsuhiko found himself on the ground. The sound of a watch echoed faintly nearby. Natsuhiko awoke to that sound. Ugh. Where am I? He was still in the ruined factory. The day of the incident. Apparently the men had tied him up when he was out cold. Just how much time had passed since he lost consciousness? As he pondered that question, he heard people groaning beside him. Ugh. Natsuhiko? It was Mashido and Sally. They'd both just woken up, it seemed. Ah, guys, are you okay? I guess I'm okay. I don't hurt anywhere, at least. It looks like we can't move. Huh? Natsuhiko finally noticed. His hands and feet were bound by stiff rope, and on closer inspection, Mashido and Sally were bound in the same way. What is this? I think it's to prevent us from escaping. No matter how much strength he put into his arms and legs, the ropes wouldn't budge. Damn, we need to free ourselves and stop those guys. As if in response to Natsuhiko's impatience, a strained cry echoed out from the darkness. Q. Ah, they didn't break Alice, thank goodness. Alice, over here. Q. Alice ran over to Sally as if in response to her voice. Wait, Alice can walk on her own? That's a simple feature, but yeah, she can walk in accordance to voice commands, and by inputting root data. I see. Then can we get Alice to bring us something we can use to cut the ropes? Didn't think of that. After looking around, they spotted some glass shards scattered on the ground beneath the window. Okay, Alice, start command. Go forward 15 meters, pick up the glass shard there and return to current position. End command. Q. Alice responded confidently and headed to the window. She spent a moment there looking for the object Sally commanded her to find, and eventually she came back with a shard of glass in her mouth. Q. You did it, good girl, Alice. Natsuhiko twisted himself around to take the glass shard from Alice. Hang on a second, guys, I'll get myself free so I can cut your ropes. Natsuhiko pressed the rope against the shard as hard as he could, and somehow he managed to cut his hands free, and feet free of the rope. Alright. He then cut Mashido and Sally free too. Phew, finally free. Thank you, Natsuhiko. The girls also appeared to be uninjured after all. Apparently the terrorist's goal here was only to entrap the kids and nothing more. But still, I don't understand the terrorists' intentions. There shouldn't have been any point in leaving us alive. No, their target is Labo after all. They were probably afraid they'd draw too much attention if they killed us. How can you tell? I heard it from them directly. From their mental voices, that is. You heard their mental voices with empathy? Yeah, probably. Even though he thought it was empathy, something still felt off about it to Natsuhiko. The ability Natsuhiko activated right before he fainted seemed a little different from empathy. Not only did he hear a voice, but he also saw a vision. Is that still empathy? But then he recalled the words he'd once heard Enna say. The possibilities of BC are endless. Who knows, one day you may find a third ability, beyond that of telepathy or empathy. A third ability? That was a possibility. Natsuhiko's BC ability was rapidly growing these last few days. Though he'd yet to master either telepathy or empathy, he'd become able to use both abilities within just a few days. Could it really be? There was no time to stop and consider the possibility. Right now, the information he gained from that ability was far more important than the ability itself. Anyway, according to their mental voices, it looks like it's true that they're targeting Labo. To make matters worse, D-Day is today. Today? Then we gotta stop them. But how? Even if we report it to the authorities, we likely won't get any different results than yesterday. That's for sure. Even if they explained everything to the security department and the police, it seemed highly unlikely that they'd make it in time. Natsuhiko silently pondered. Should we go directly to Labo and tip them off there? But that would be dangerous. There was a high probability that Q had a sleeper agent there. They could very well wind up caught in the terrorist attack themselves. They would almost certainly get them killed. In that case, shouldn't we run for it as soon as possible? He could bring Mashido and Sally straight home, so they could take Yuri out of the city. That seemed to be the most proper course of action to him. It'd be a different story if it were just him, but there was no way he could expose the girls to danger. However, would then I'd be abandoning all the people in town. Is it okay to ignore all the people we don't know? He always had. That was what Natsuhiko's life had taught him. He didn't care about the fires, the accidents, the violent events he saw on the news and TV. They had nothing to do with him at all. They weren't important. Pretty much the only people important to him were himself, Yuri, and perhaps Mashido and Sally, too. What do you mean, perhaps? Of course Mashido and Sally too, dick. That's what he'd always thought. But in the back of his mind, he thought about all those people in town who had nothing to do with him at all. The classmates he'd associated with at a distance, the childhood friends who had left him after learning he was a communicator, and Enna who would not open her heart to them. Damn it, what does all that even matter? If the nuclear reactor melts down, everyone will die, won't they? This town will become uninhabitable, won't it? Which means that the obvious choice of action is to prioritize our own escape, isn't it? But right then, suddenly, the memories of various statements Natsuhiko had heard recently came echoing back to his mind. But Hikiden, you might regret not doing anything. And I'm going to protect this town my way, so you guys do whatever it is you can. Capiche? Overcome the past. I'm sure you can do it, Hikiden. And then Natsuhiko realized, even if they tried to escape now, that wouldn't necessarily mean that they could. Even residents need to go through strict checks and procedures to come in and out of the city. Can I still take Yuri out of the city despite that? It seemed difficult. You could go to Labo, or you could try to escape. They were in danger regardless. In that case, I should go to Labo. Natsuhiko surprised himself at the conclusion he came to, but his conviction only grew stronger. 9 years ago, Natsuhiko and Yuri went to Labo and got into an accident. The fear he felt that fateful day had yet to fade. He might face death once more. He might lose something precious, but there was no reason to stop. I have to go, don't I, Yuri? Or else I'll never be able to overcome the past. As soon as that thought crossed Natsuhiko's mind, Mashido gasped. Natsuhiko, don't tell me! You're not planning on going to Labo right now, are you? Both Natsuhiko and Sally's eyes opened wide at those words. How did you use empathy? I can tell even without using it. We've been together so long after all. I see. There's no hiding it from Mashido, right? Natsuhiko answered her with a smile of resignation. Say, Mashido, I finally understand how you felt 3 nights ago. Huh? Nobody in the whole town knows that a terrorist attack will happen at Labo today besides us. This situation kind of makes you feel a sense of obligation, doesn't it? If I don't do something, the city's as good as gone. This isn't some event happening on the other side of the TV. This has everything to do with us. So I really do have to go. He had thought that by avoiding danger he could live in peace, but no matter how much he tried to avoid danger, his peace would crumble. And as Natsuhiko finally realized that, Sully softly spoke up. Even if you go to Labo, you might not be able to do anything. Even if you warn the security officials, there's a high possibility that they won't believe you. But if I don't go, I'm sure I'll regret it. I don't want to have any more regrets. Natsuhiko had built up countless regrets prior to today. Countless times he'd thought, if only we hadn't gone to Labo that day. But now it was the opposite. He would regret it if he didn't go to Labo. Then we'll come too. No, there's no need for you two to come. I'll be fine by myself. Then what do we do? I've got a favor to ask. Go home right away and take Yuri as far away as possible. Make her come with you, even if she screams and cries. In case the worst happens. Natsuhiko looked the girls in the eye. But Mashido glared back at him. Don't give me that. You expect me to go home now after all we've been through just because you tell me to? Huh? 9 years ago, you and Yuri got into an accident at Labo, didn't you? Do you have any idea how it felt for me? I regretted not stopping you so badly that I wanted to die. Not even you can be so dense as to not realize that, can you? Even now I want to stop you. If we're going to run away, then I want you to run away with us. But there's no stopping you, is there, Natsuhiko? You won't give up on going to Labo, no matter what, will you? It's the same as 9 years ago. So in that case, at least let me go with you. You say you don't want to have any more regrets? Well, neither do I. Mashido's voice was trembling. Those were probably words Mashido had kept locked inside her heart for years. But Mashido, that's still... And Natsuhiko still persisted on stopping Mashido from joining him. Sully sighed and spoke up. I agree with Mashido. Nothing we can say can stop you, Natsuhiko. Huh? You always say you're trying to avoid danger, but whenever it involves Mashido or Yuri, you break that oath all too easily. No, that's... well... that contradictory demeanor of yours is unmanageable. I've become painfully aware of that these past few days. Since it's pointless to stop you, you leave me no choice. I'll go with you too. Natsuhiko gasped at those words. Hey, what are you saying? Were you not listening? Yeah, it's going to be dangerous, you know. I have a 9-year-old near score to settle. Well, why do you have to come with us too, Sally? No, it's actually only obvious that I go. If you two go to Labo alone, you have no way to deal with the terrorists if you come across them. Am I wrong? Well, true, but the terrorists were able to KO you last night, weren't they? That's right. My regret is last night. If I had defeated them, we wouldn't be having this much of a problem now. So I'm going too. End of discussion. You cannot change my mind. Besides, above all else, my duty is to protect you, Natsuhiko. Sully spoke in one breath, in the same level-headed tone she used when they first met. But between the lines, Mashido and Natsuhiko could tell that she was worried about them. Ah, jeez. How can you two be so stubborn? Mashido and Sully threw Natsuhiko's vitriol back at him. I don't want to hear it from you, Natsuhiko. The three of us just have the same idea in mind. Total agreement. Natsuhiko smiled wryly at those words. I guess there's no stopping you two either, huh? He was headed towards a terrorist target with two girls as his only allies. It was quite an absurd proposition, and an extremely dangerous one at that. And yet Natsuhiko was starting to feel that he was okay with it. Damn it, why? My fear from 9 years ago hadn't faded after all those years. So why is it only softening now that I know I've got these two people by my side? He was beginning to understand how Mashido felt more and more. How the simple notion that he was not alone was so encouraging. Natsuhiko grinned at the girls and spoke deliberately, in a deliberately cheerful voice. Okay, you win, guys. I concede. Natsuhiko, you mean... I can't waste any time arguing here, so I've got no choice but to take you two with me. Hey, what's with the attitude? You're weaker than me, you know. You got me there. Though he was laughing, Natsuhiko swore to himself that no matter what happened from here on out, he'd protect these two. He was physically weaker than Sully, and he was less skilled with BC than Mashido. So protecting them was the only way he could repay them for their courage they provided him. Okay then, ready guys? Roger. I'm ready to go whenever you are. Let's go, to protect the city. The kids nodded at each other and dashed off. And with that, we're out of time for today. Whew, well, I mean, the guy they knocked out absolutely was he like the main terrorist guy, or like she says if she knocked them out, maybe we would be having this trouble, but if the organization's as big as they say, knocking out those three wouldn't stop the terrorist plot from happening, right? They're just cogs in a big machine or whatever. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks again out for me, and I'll see you in the next one.